Recording in progress.
Yes.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Wood,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember Crossman,
Here.
Councilmember Kingser,
Guys.
Kingsheiser.
Geyser.
Councilmember Hess. Here. Councilmember Palmer,
Present.
Councilmember Kaminsky. Here. Mayor Pinto.
Here. Can we get an agenda approval, please? Councilmember Hess.
I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
By Councilmember Kaminsky, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Got an agenda. Moving on to special presentations, none scheduled. Moving to public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Gene? You can spill out later if you just want to come on up.
You want to speak, Gene? No. Do you want to speak? You just get an agenda.
Oh, okay. Is there anyone else from public that wishes to?
Check online.
Online. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. None scheduled. New business. We have ordinance number 1111, changes to the Yelm Municipal Code, chapter 10.24. This is Chris, please.
Good evening, Mayor DePinto. Good evening, members of council. So what's before you is a proposal to change our code to restrict parking on street. Basically, we're seeing a lot of RVs, trailers with motorcycles, boats, all kinds of things parked on street, and it's creating a traffic obstruction and a necessary hazard in neighborhoods, pedestrians, children at play. We would just like to update this code to reflect that that parking is intended for passenger vehicles, not semi-tractor trailers or some of these other things that you see. If you have any questions, please feel free. I think everything is before you.
Questions? Councilmember Hess?
I was to say she had her hand up first.
Councilmember, oh, did you have a question or?
Question I have is, this is, the streets that we're talking about is within the city limits itself, not along the main thoroughfare or in certain districts. Is that correct?
It is within the city limits, correct?
Councilmember Kaminsky.
Chris, you mentioned earlier that these are ordinances that are in place, that we're putting them into a different code place. Is that
With an update to our Yelm Municipal Code.
update?
Yeah,
It's not really anything different.
it's not really anything different. It's just stronger, more defined language.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Palmer?
Move to approve ordinance number 1111, changes to Yelm Municipal Code, chapter 10.24. Motion to adopt ordinance number 11, changes to the Yelm Municipal Code 10.24 regarding stopping, standing, and parking.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Hess. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Was that, no, you've done the motions.
Oh, no, yeah, I was like right at the top line.
Wow. Moving on to ordinance number 1114, change to the Yelm Municipal Code 18.22.050. Is this you again, Chris?
Excellent, yes, thank you again. This is an ordinance regarding single-family residences or buildings such that become adult care facilities. We have one in town. It's a single-family residence that became an 8-bedroom facility. These tend to be smaller bedrooms, 10 foot by 7 foot. We're talking about a vulnerable population, people that may be physically disabled, mentally disabled. In the instance there's a fire, we would prefer that those buildings are sprinkled. It not only protects the occupants, it also protects the emergency responders that show up to these events. If you have any questions on that, please feel free. It's safer for everybody. I don't see how there's anybody that doesn't benefit from this type of a change.
Could you explain the timing for this and if any outreach has been done to the only one that we have in town?
The one that we have actually reached out to Lieutenant Matt Russell recently, and they're actually interested in sprinklering their building because it benefits them in regards to insurance, not just for property, but also for life. And I believe that person intends on possibly opening another location in Yelm, and they're on board with sprinkling that one as well.
Councilmember Wood.
Did I hear you mention we just have one?
We just have the one now.
And their interest is in going this direction.
Possibly opening a second.
In regards to their second one as well, that's something that they've expressed interest in doing is.
Absolutely. They understand the risk involved and they understand the benefit that comes with sprinkler building.
Very good. Thanks, Chris.
I spoke to the gentleman too about it, the owner. He has said he is committed to move forward with this as well, sprinklers. Counselor Crossman.
What facility building types don't have fire sprinklers or not required left? Or which one would be more, like, would be easier to explain? What type of building do you have to have fire suppression or which ones don't have?
Well, as International Fire Code is written, all new construction will. However, Washington State made an amendment that single-family residences and duplexes are not required to be sprinklered. And then we start to get into commercial developments like a restaurant. If it's over 5,000 square feet in area or has more than 100 occupants or has an exit discharge that's not at grade, that would trip a sprinkler requirement. Some places 12,000 is the lucky square foot number that if you go over 12,000, you have to have a sprinkler system. So it all has to do with the size of the building, the hazard associated with the building.
Do apartment buildings have to have sprinklers?
Yes, apartment buildings, triplexes, fourplexes.
Councilor Hess.
You said that this was to protect the vulnerable community, the vulnerable occupants of the building. Do we have the same thing for childcare? In other words, somebody takes a house, converts into their childcare facility, and the children are, vulnerable as well. I'm just wondering if we have that already in place as well.
There's also a square footage that trips that, as well as an occupant load. If you have so many children, you have to have that. But with these daycares, I mean, I guess an in-home daycare would be very similar, except you're not creating these small rooms that children are going to be in. It's more of an open area, so egress is much more available.
Councilor Richardson.
So as far as I understand, this puts us in line with our standards and specifications matching the National Fire Protection Agency.
It does. Yeah, and with with a proposal like this, it also goes through DSHS and they're pretty strict about it. But people who develop these properties, they know those rules and sometimes they want to meander around them. I just feel like it'd be better if we had something more finite that said, no, we would all feel a lot better, especially if we were going to put one of our relatives in one of these facilities. We want to know that they're getting afforded the maximum protection.
Councilor Kaminsky, then Hess.
Do you have a question, Brian? No. I was going to move to adopt ordinance 1114, changes to Yelm Municipal Code 1822-050 adult care facilities.
Second.
Second by Councilor Palmer. Any further questions, comments? Let's do a let's do a roll call. Councilor Wood.
Aye.
Councilor Richardson.
Aye.
Councilor Crossman.
Aye.
Councilor King Geyser.
Aye.
Councilor Hess.
Aye.
Councilor Palmer.
Aye.
Councilor Kaminsky.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your consideration.
Moving on to item C, ordinance number 1112 for the 2023-2024 budget amendment. Stephanie, I believe this is you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members. I believe this starts on page 14 of your packet. So this is our first budget amendment for 2024. And I want to just go over briefly the items that we're amending the budget. So you'll see on page 14 under 2023, we had an increase for the stage construction. It was a change order that council approved on 9/23 for $233,825. We just didn't get it actually put into our financial budget system. So we're adding it to this ordinance so we can put it in there and make the state auditors happy with that process. Going into 2024, we do have some new items. The first item would be an increase to the general fund expenditures for $10,000, and that just covers some increases in benefits in the general fund. On line 2, this is an increase to the tourism fund. They originally were budgeted for $40,000 in 2024. I believe the LTAC committee came to council and requested an additional $110,000. So the total budget for 2024 would be $150,000. Line 3 and 4, or actually line 3, there was the LTAC recommendation to give the city a grant for 75,000. And so line 3 is moving those funds from the tourism fund to the general fund to be used for the grant purpose of the centennial celebration. So that line 3, 75,000, that's part of the 110,000. And so that's a little confusing. We went over that in the finance committee. Line 34 is an expenditure in the general fund of 35,000, and this is for community development consultant plans and services. So this is money where we may pay a consultant to provide services, but then we receive that money back through permitting fees. So it's kind of an in and out in the general fund, but we have to have that budgeted. Line 5 is a revenue and expenditure to the general fund of $10,000. That's for the AWC loss prevention grant. I believe we're going to use that money for key card system. Yeah. Line 6 is an increase in expenditures in the street fund for 30,000. 15 of that will be for sidewalk repair and maintenance, and then the other 15 will be for street repairs and maintenance. Line 7 is an expenditure in the general fund for 30,000. That's an estimate for the real estate consultant for the 640 acres. Line 8 is an expenditure in the general fund for 12,000 for our police department to participate in the county SWAT team. And so that 12,000 covers training and equipment. And then line 9 and 10, we received a grant for 500,000 for it's called a climate pledge grant. So it's showing the revenue coming in of 500,000 and that we would spend that 500,000. So those are the new items. Under housekeeping items, and stop me if you have any questions. Line 1 in the water fund, we had scheduled some transfers in the water fund to pay for debt. That debt was actually paid off last year, so we don't need those transfers to happen. So we're just reversing those. So it'll be a savings to the water fund. And it's good to get debt paid off.
Stephanie,
Yes.
what do you have to do to get the climate pledge grant?
Well, that would be Cody. He could speak to that.
Hello, council. So the Climate Pledge Grant, all cities are required by state law to plan for climate change, whatever that might be. And that encourages finding green energy, alternative fuel sources, finding ways to improve your streets if there's flooding, if there's heating, all that kind of stuff. You're required by law to incorporate that. So this was a funded mandate. So they gave us a grant to incorporate that. So our codes, our comp plan, all of our stuff that we're working on right now will include those ideas and things about how we can better be climate resilient as a city. So no matter what the changes are to the world around us, we can as a city still be sustainable no matter what happens.
A lot of these have been for cost savings and efficiencies for the city, like our solar on our community center, on the roof of that, our electric chargers, things like that. So,
Yeah, exactly right, Mayor. So.
Councilor Wood.
I'm curious if either yourself, Cody, or perhaps you, Mr. Mayor, can explain how we got to the $500,000 for climate pledge grant. What was the process that took place to where the state, and I know I'm reaching here, I don't expect you to necessarily know, I'm hoping that you do. But I'm curious, what was the process that got us to the point where the state decided for us that we needed to spend that they needed to give us $500,000 to spend on a climate pledge,
So I'm not 100% on the intent, but I would imagine it has to do with, I don't want to sound too partisan, but it's a democratically controlled state and there's some priorities that the state has in climate resiliency and
would that be something that the House did or the state Senate or
it would have to say
these guys had some group or somebody who said, here, this is what you guys need to do, send this down the line and let all the jurisdictions know that You know, we're gonna fix climate change.
Sure. I don't think it's any secret that the Governor Inslee is, one of his mandates is, climate protection.
Right.
And,
I'm just curious.
it had been passed by both the Senate and the House. He has to sign it into law. He can veto some of that, but, I'm not sure exactly on the process it came down for on our side. They ended up on our desks. Some of that is rulemaking process. I don't know if Department of Ecology or Department of Commerce is the one that ministers this, but there's some rulemaking as well. Do you want to kind of talk on our end what we saw?
Yeah, so the biggest things where we saw mandates come down for the comprehensive plan, with the Growth Management Act, and that normally is controlled by the House bills that come in. And one of the House bills required them to have climate resiliency in your comp plan. And it's very broad, climate resiliency, and it included things like solar power, alternate fuel sources, electrical chargers. So it had a bunch of requirements in there. So they offered a grant to get. We applied for it because why not? Yeah, if we have to do it, we might as well try to get it paid for. And we got the amount we needed, more than we needed, which is great because then we can really robust our code. And some of these things can be just to update our code. And so climate resiliency is a very broad term, right? It doesn't have to be like just a solar panel. Climate resiliency can be making sure our roads are materials that last longer. Making sure our codes and buildings have protections and make sure the buildings last longer and more affected by weather. So climate resilience is very broad, and we're going to use it that way to not only put in the climate resiliency part that they're focused on, but also to robust our codes and our guidance and everything that kind of has more of that effect in it.
Right, and I think you're doing a great job. My curiosity, I suppose, is, who were the educated individuals that grouped together and decided to pass this information on to Congress and let them know that this is the pathway to take. Because it just seems like there's a lot of, hey, this is great. And just like you described, there's not a lot of real clear understanding of what exactly they're shooting for, other than it sounds like, look at us, we're trying really hard here in the state of Washington to look like we're doing something efficiently other than just spending money. But thank you. I certainly wasn't asking because I know you get to spend some time up there and an opportunity to hear some conversations. So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's, like I said, environmentalism is very important for the current governor, and that's one of his things that he pushes. And legislature, and their infinite knowledge, decided this was also a good idea. And we're using it to advantage, though. Honestly, we're getting a lot of projects done that's going to make us more efficient. That helps our citizens if they want to recharge their electric vehicles, for our cost for us, for our community center. So we're being pretty functional with it. We're not doing anything crazy or, outside of the norm, but this is, it's going to benefit us.
So there's no mandated,
Kaminsky, then
no
no problem.
mandated list of things we have to do to prove that we did.
There are some things like we have to look at alternative energy sources. So like solar panels, you have to look at EV chargers. You have to look at building upgrades to prevent from like flooding, other things. So there are mandates in there, but they are obtainable with that money, with having extra money left over to look at some other things that are kind of broader, if that makes sense. So we're going to obtain those mandates, but also use some of that money for other things we need to do anyway.
What if there was a flood that damaged something, that money could fix the thing that came from climate?
This is purely for planning, for climate, for planning for stuff, studies, plans, designs. It can't be for an actual construction.
And that's what
I was going to ask this later, but since we're talking about it, does that put language into requiring when we build like city structures to use low carbon materials?
So some of it will, and in that it'll be code, it already required. We won't do anything that's not required by state already, but there will be looking at different materials, maybe bonuses if someone's building solar panels on their house, maybe they get a tax credit from us or a lower property tax. I don't know. That'll be all things we'll look at what we can do to encourage people to be climate resilient.
Or replying?
Yes.
The lowest.
Yeah, it's more us.
So I just want to make sure I understand, because it came out, but it's not money that can be used to pay for our solar panel that like we're getting to do, but it's to do the studies. In other words, hiring a consulting firm that specializes in alternate forms of energy and giving that kind of information to us on how we can be more resilient with it, as well as encouraging businesses and community members to go towards it. Is that correct?
Partially, yeah. So the biggest thing is our comp plan. Right now, we're doing our comp plan, right? There's a whole climate section and we were fronting, so there's a grant right now for our comp plan for 125,000. We were fronting 200,000 on top of that. Some of that climate pledge grant money can be used for that 200,000 that we were fronting. So we can reimburse ourselves for some of that. Other parts of it can be used to update our code, which we were planning on doing anyways, to add climate resiliency factors. So, EV charging, stuff like that. The benefit to this is that we already have a consultant on board for our plan, and we can just do an amendment with that consultant to add this piece so they continue to work on it. So we don't have to go back out and do a bunch of crazy stuff.
So it's not necessarily a capital expense as in being able to buy materials or anything like that. It's the idea/study.
Okay. Plans and studies. It doesn't have actual construction.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kaminsky.
Does this have anything to do with removing natural gas from new construction in the code?
So that is already a mandate that a new construction has to remove natural gas. That has not this is looking at alternate fuel sources, but we have no control over that section. I know what you're talking about where I think it was just last month, the new bill where houses cannot be built with natural gas in them. This has nothing to do with that, but this will look at alternate energy sources. So.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Back to the budget in general.
All right.
Is that it? Do you have any other?
Yes. The next page, we have carryovers of projects. And so these, keep in mind, these are all things that we approved in the budget. They were not completed in 2023, so we're having to carry over both revenues and expenditures that were not completed in 2023 over to 2024. So line one, and I'm just going to kind of group these. The first three lines are in the general fund. One of them is the fuel for law enforcement. We have a carryover of $13,410, mainly because we purchase our fuel from the school district. They didn't send us the invoice for the last part of 2023 until 2024. So we use the fuel, but we needed to move the payment over to 2024 because we cannot accrue it back to 2020. So then the next two lines are both grants that the police department received. One was from Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police. The other was a Nisqually Tribe grant. They didn't spend all of the grant proceeds in 2023, so they're just carrying it over to spend the rest in 2024. And those are upfront grants. They're not reimbursement grants. So we get the money and then we spend it on the things that were agreed upon. So the next lines 4 through 11 are in the municipal building fund. And most of these revenues are grant revenues for the projects that were going over in that fund, the dog park, the Prairie Line Trail, the Yelm City Park Master Plan, the solar work on the community center. So these are all expenditures and correlating grant revenue that we just weren't able to close out in 2023. We're carrying it over to 2024. Line 12 through 16 is the water capital improvement fund. We started these projects in 2023, the reservoir project and the water main improvements. Again, these are all expenditures that just didn't happen in 2023 or weren't finished that we're carrying over to 2024. Line 17 through 27, all of those line items are the water reclamation facility, the upgrade project. So that's being funded through a loan and through 2 grants. And there's several different areas that those monies can pay for. And so it's really been a juggling act. And part of the problem has been delays in supplies and things like that. So what we thought we would be doing in 2023 maybe didn't happen or it all happened. And so we're just balancing out that project between the 2 years. The overall project is still on budget from when Pat last talked to you, but we do have carryovers. And then lines 28 through 31 are in the general fund. One is the comprehensive plan grant, and the other is the Habitat Conservation Plan grant. So those are revenues and expenditures for those two projects that are getting carried over. Any questions?
Lots, so
A lot of information.
in Finance Committee.
And I'm sorry, we do need to add, we received the grant from the Nisqually tribe for the flock system. I didn't get it listed on here, but we do need to amend the ordinance to include the Nisqually grant and the correlating expense for that flock system when we go to make a motion on this ordinance.
Councilman Richardson.
So just overlooking all this stuff, Stephanie, I think a lot of this stuff, council approved. So it's just kind of amending that and catching up to what we need to have show in the budget. So kind of a no-brainer for me. I can see, but then thank you for explaining the things that weren't really necessarily brought to our attention. So I appreciate that.
Councilmember Hess.
I'd like to move to adopt ordinance number 1112, amending fiscal years 2023, 2024 biennial budgets, setting actual 2024 beginning fund balances and carryover projects that were not completed in 2023 and must be completed in 2024. The general fund's actual beginning fund balance increased due to one-time revenues, grants, and cost savings, and additional items were added that were not foreseen at the adoption of the original 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Need an amendment on it to include the flock system?
And to also include the grant from the Nisqually tribe for the flock system and the future expenditure of that money for the flock system.
Second, that.
Second by Councilman Richardson. That's good though for the word verbiage. Okay, cool. All right, any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Kaminsky.
Yes.
Councilmember Palmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Hess.
Yes.
Councilmember King Geyser. Councilmember Crossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson.
Yes.
Aye. Wood. All right.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. All right. That's a lot, so thank you. Good questions. Moving on to item D, amendment number 1 to contract for comprehensive plan update. Cody, is this you? This is Tizak.
You would have made a nice step.
So council, before you is an amendment to spend the climate pledge grant money that you just budgeted for and amend the contract with our current consultant to include the climate pledge grant language and the new scope that is in your packet. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Palmer.
Okay, so I understand that there was a change of scope because of the climate change that we had to do. But is it really more than double the original amount, 325,000 with a $449,000 increase?
So the amount of stuff we're going to do with the climate pledge, we're going to spend, it's there, so we're going to spend it all to try to get as much done as possible in our code that we're going to have to do at some point anyways. So the goal is to use it all as effectively as possible and not leave anything on the table to go back to this.
So this wasn't like they knew there was $500,000 and 440.
We literally were just adding stuff to the scope to get to a high, to try to spend everything we could.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Other questions? Councilor Hess.
I'd like to move to authorize Mayor DePinto to approve amendment number 1 with Council Levine in the not to exceed amount of $773,870 for the comprehensive plan update.
Any further discussion? Or excuse me, is there a second?
Yeah.
Second by Councilor King Geyser. Is there any further discussion? Let's do all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
1 nay. Motion carries. All righty. Thank you, council. Moving on to item E, under new business, public services agreement with Nisqually Construction for the construction of downtown parking lot. Cody.
So before you, if you should have a bid tabulation sheet as well in your packet. So Nisqually Construction was the lowest qualified bidder. And we've worked with them before on the stage. We've worked on a couple projects. They came in almost $100,000 less than the next qualified bidder. They wanted to work with us so bad that they're just paying their guys. They're not taking any profit or any exceeding. They're doing it for as little as they could. The plan is that parking lot will be done in the first week of June. It will be done by Prairie Days is the goal, but their contract ends, I believe, June 2nd for this parking lot. And that'll be right behind you guys. There will be 2 EV chargers in that parking lot, motorcycle parking in that parking lot, along with disabled parking. And there will be a sidewalk constructed that'll connect this sidewalk to the activated alleyway that'll be constructed later this year to early next year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Hess?
You brought up that they were the ones who did the stage. Even though they came in lower than the others by a large significant amount, if I remember correct, within the scope with the stage, all of a sudden had to do a change amendment increasing. That's not going to happen with the parking lot, is it?
No, we changed the scope of what they were doing with the stage. So they came in, so the parking lot is fully designed, built. They designed the stage and we kind of changed the scope in the middle of the project to make it a lot nicer. So no, this should be a good number and they've been really great to work with on everything, very straightforward with this, so.
Thank you.
Good question. Other questions, comments? Councilor Wood?
I'm curious, I remember hearing about this when we sitting in the audience, you guys talking about this. And at one point, correct me if I'm wrong, or explain how we went from, I thought this thing was going to be done to accommodate future potential growth for stories moving upward. So is that still in the plan here?
So yes, but there's an easement for the company that consolidated now Rainier Connect or whatever they sold out to has an easement over the property above 15 feet. So they have to abandon their satellite dish at some point for us to go up. If they do, then we can go up. There is the ability to adjust this parking lot to an upward standing parking lot. We did back some of the stuff off because it racked up the price to build like the underground structures, but it's designed in a way that are easy to put in and change it to that later on. And as you can see on there, I don't have the plans, but the lighting we're installing the lighting ourselves. That is removable lighting. So like there won't be electrical run under the ground except for the EV chargers, which are on the very end, which then can be ran up to the other stories. So it will be easy to convert, but we can't convert it now because of that dish easement they have.
What kind of timeline are you looking at for potential abandonment of their aerial easement?
So when it was consolidated, they had talked about abandoning it this year. The new company, they are different and it took us a lot to get just the easement to get the parking lot expanded. I'm not sure when they will abandon it. They mentioned they will, but they haven't given us a timeline. So
Do they have the easement across the whole property or just a portion of it?
it's directly where the satellite dish goes across. So it's like the left corner. You can see kind of where the dish is pointed. And it's 15 feet. Anything above 15 feet, you can't go. Which a parking lot, the first story is at 15 feet. So you wouldn't be able to build the first story.
Doesn't mean we won't get it done, but.
Yeah, eventually, I mean, hopefully, I think you'll see the need of this parking lot, how quickly it fills up. People will support how great this was, that we'll be willing to allocate more money in future budgets to continue to build it up or build other parking lots in other spots that we might have picked out.
Councilor Hess.
With this parking lot, there's been discussions about the fact of readjusting the code for the central business district. With this parking lot, will that be able to move forward for those businesses as well as future businesses?
Yeah, so our code currently allows us, if there's business located in central business district and there's not enough parking for themselves, we can do what's called on-street, and we're classifying this as city-owned parking that they will be able to use to fill spots. What that'll look like in the long term, we don't know, but we can use this as a permitted area for a place, maybe a food restaurant wants to come in where there hasn't been a food restaurant and there's not a lot of parking. We can now permit it with the knowing that this parking lot is within a 300-foot range or a 500-foot range. So we will add more code later that will kind of clearly define that, but our code allows us to make those concessions now.
Other questions, comments, Councilor Wood?
I'm just curious, was there any feedback at all? I mean, have you putting out to the community at all, as far as how they feel about it? My concern is that there's primarily one group that uses the parking lot. And, if somebody were to be looking at it from that perspective, it might look like we're, building a parking lot for a business.
Yeah, I think the thing I was focused on was the events. That parking lot is the first place people will park when there's a prairie days when there's any event going on in this park. So I was looking at that. I understand there is a couple businesses, and then during tax season, there might be another business that uses that parking lot quite a bit. But the overall benefit to everyone in that area, I think, is beneficial to the city as a whole. I do understand some businesses might benefit a little bit more because of the location, but we might be able to do more of these parking lots now that we've kind of set a standard in other parts of the city that will help other businesses.
I was curious if you had any, if there had been any pushback.
Yeah. Oh, and it does. And the other thing to think about is we are building the activated alleyway where the farmer's market will be, and that parking lot will connect directly to that, which provides that. And everyone I've talked to has been super excited about this project, the local businesses especially there. But I haven't actually heard a whole lot of negatives despite what most people say about other stuff.
I was going to say, echo the same thing. I haven't heard anything negative about it. Councilor Richardson.
One of the things I despise about visiting cities is not having enough parking spots. This is excellent in my eyes, especially when I think about things like possibly the farmer's market. So looks like it's a plus here. So yeah.
And like you said, the parades that we have, it's a great parking lot for that as well. Central location. Councilmember Palmer.
I was gonna say, you know how I feel about parking in this town. We needed more of it, so I think we can add more for the citizens. That's gonna make everybody happier, especially if we're making more stringent requirements for off or on-street parking, so. Yeah.
And like Cody said, we'll look at, depending on how this goes and successful it is, we'll look at other areas too that we can increase parking for the citizens. Councilor Richardson.
Make a motion to authorize Mayor to pen and sign the public services agreement with McCoy Construction in the not to exceed amount of $306,885.41 for construction of the downtown parking lot.
Second by Councilmember Palmer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to old business. Unscheduled standing council committee reports, Public Safety Committee,
Nothing new to report this time.
Public Services Committee.
Yeah, we had a meeting today. We talked about, so Longmire Park, it's time to fix it because it's been a long time. It was put together not in the best way. And then we play sports down there, you know, it has issues. So, the city planning department's going to be putting together for that. We'll see soon to get a design. The idea is to create master plan design for the whole park, not just fix this, fix that, but get a whole idea of how to fix the drainage, parking, ADA, accessibility, the fields, usage, all that. So we have that to look forward to soon. And the idea is to revamp the park over the years, not just all at once, because it will be extensive. And we looked at all the projects under construction. It is listed on the website. So anybody that wants to know what the city's up to, it is on the city website. Just a reminder on that. And then the road on Saturday, Walmart Boulevard and 103rd by Grove will be shut down completely for 150 cement trucks to do their thing. So if you live in that area, be aware on Saturday, you will not be able to drive down that road. And then we talked about everything we voted on today too, so.
We are blasting on our social media too about the road closure. Okay, thank you. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee, we had a meeting today, and you heard everything Stephanie had to say in our meeting, so nothing new to add to what we already voted on.
Great. All right, moving on to Mayor, City Administrator, staff reports. Todd.
All right, just a couple updates. Many of our staff will participate in ALICE training tomorrow from 10 to 11. Don't ask me what ALICE means. I had it written down last time, but I don't know. It is basically safety training, active shooter type training for our staff. So our police department will be doing the training for us. So that'll take place over here tomorrow. Public Works and Police, busy getting ready for our Prairie Days 100-year celebration, which will be pretty significant this year. So that's going on. May 2nd, our dog park grand opening is still set for next Thursday.
Nick is going to be there? The crime dog? I'm just kidding.
Smokey, the bear.
Oh, excuse me. Are we putting it out to the public that people can bring their dogs on that day or to the opening? Or is that not really what it's for?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bring him.
Everybody can come up there.
Cut the ribbon.
Dog park, but you're not allowed dogs.
You cut the ribbon at 11?
Yeah,
Don't pee on
After
the.
that, it's open.
not before though, after the ribbon cutting, yeah.
11:15-ish, maybe 11:15.
And there's rules and, there's a big list of rules what you can and can't do with it. I mean, there's a small dog park, there's a big dog park. If they have diseases or if they have something, you're not allowed to go, if they're sick or something. There's a good list of rules, but yeah.
Let's see, other than that, our finance department is very busy working on our annual report, in addition to doing the multiple budget amendments that you read. So thanks, Stephanie. And then, other than that, we're getting ready, for our management retreat and our council retreat on Thursday, Friday, and half a Saturday. So getting ready for that.
And you should all have the, hopefully the finalized agenda. If there is still something we want to discuss, we can go ahead and talk about that. We'll make time for it. Staff will be there on, April 26th, the Friday. That'll be the best opportunity to discuss, budget priorities for individuals. If you have something that you want to, a priority that you want, other than what you've explained here in the past. I know we got sidewalks in there. It's going to be part of the budget. I mean, you saw the increase today. If you have a priority as a council member and you want to see it happen, this is the time to discuss it. Hit me up, caught up with it, what your ideas are, and we'll try to incorporate it somehow. It's, it's the city budget here, so we want to make sure that people are heard and your voices are representing the people. So it's, just make sure that you have that. But that'll be a good opportunity between 12 and 2 to do that. Each department will go ahead and discuss, what they're proposing. But yeah, anything on the questions for the, council retreat?
That's it. That's it. Thank you.
On my end, I was going to go into a little bit of that, so you stole my thunder, Todd, but thank you. Other than that, had steady. It was good to attend that. It's been a while since I have, so I appreciate the opportunity to go to that. It was here in Yelm. Give a good welcome. We had a port presentation, and the new executive director for the ports was there, and she kind of gave me an explanation on what her role is and what her priorities are. Wayne Fournier talked about, which I always appreciate about him, is the advocating for money here in South County and making sure that we get, for our tax dollars, because it's Port of Olympia, but the taxing district is all of Thurston County. And so we need to make sure that we find some benefit in it for the tax dollars that we put into there. And part of that is, we have a small cities grant that all the South counties can apply for. None of the bigger cities can. It's meant for us. And in the past, that limit was 10,000. I think it was moved up when I was still on council. You might have been too on that one in 2018 or 19 or so. When we hit 10,000 people, we didn't qualify for it, so they bumped up our. I think it's to 13,000 now is the limit. But eventually, we're going to hit that too. And so something that I chat with her about was the new executive director was ensuring that we get something out of it, even if we move past that number. Whether that's extending that number up so we still qualify for those grants. This is a $10,000 grant currently annually that we can get. But we want to make sure that we can get some money back for the residents here and see some benefit of that. But other than that, had a South County leadership meeting after that, which includes the mayors for the South County, Rainier, Tenino, Pakota, and Yelm, and the commissioners that represent that area, which is currently Commissioner Fournier and Edwards. Edwards was not there at that one. We need to make sure he's there at the next one. But yeah, well, we talked about partnerships that we can do, different cooperation and ways we can cooperate between the different municipalities. And it's just ensuring that we're all on the same page when we're going out for grants, or we're looking at different organizations that are countywide, that we're on the same page and getting as much money and funding as we can from South County. That's all I've got. Councilor Hess.
Question either for you, Mayor, or for Administrator Stansel. In reference to the 640 acres, lots of questions have been coming up within this past week, as well as part of last week, in reference to what's going on with that. And even though I've gotten some clarification, again today, something was said by another individual with the city in reference to that 640 acres that we are in the process of selling it. Could we please get clarification of exactly what's happening with the 640 acres, where we are and what the process that we're looking at?
Yeah, we're in the RFP process. Todd, you want to kind of talk about where we're at with that. We're not necessarily, it's up to council ultimately what we do with that. So ultimately, it's your decision. But we currently own a property that has 640 acres. Todd, take away from there.
Okay. So the RFP that went out is for basically two pieces. One is the consulting piece and one is the marketing of the property. So the selection that we went through today has to do with both. So the first phase is the consulting piece, which will have much interaction with council, stakeholders to the 640 acres to determine what is the best use of this property. So nothing has been decided. Nothing's been decided on how it will be built out, what it will look like. It is currently zoned as a master planned community. The council has the ability to change that and update that. But as of right now, the first phase is purely consulting. And so before we move to a marketing phase, council will have to decide what is the path forward and what do you want to see up there. Then the marketing phase will begin. Currently, though, we're just going to enter into the consulting phase to look at our options for that property and basically get the best we can for our taxpayers with that property. So that's what it is.
Absolutely right. And then part of that is also your decision on what to do with that. Part of that, Council Tree has a discussion on 640 acres. We'll give an update on the RFP process. Where we're at with that. Some of you would participate in that today, earlier in that process. I think we're close to where we have made a decision. We need to contact them first before we publicly announce it. And then council will be made aware of that this weekend here.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else on that? All right, moving on to council member reports. Councilmember Wood.
I attended the Transportation Policy Board meeting. We, what I thought was a call for projects was just a preparation for a call for projects. So not much to report there.
And I think we are monitoring that too from staff side to have projects ready to go. Thank you. Councilor Richardson.
Attended Public Service Committee. We already heard about that. I'm ready for bed.
Councilor Crossman.
I would like to just encourage everyone to attend the Arbor Day celebration on Friday at 11 at Community Center Park, right? I unfortunately won't be there, but you know, my job, I love trees, I love wood, so that's kind of cool. Then I would also like to encourage everybody to attend the Yelm Expo at the high school this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I will be there for sure. And it'll be a good time just to support the community and local businesses and such vendors. And there'll be a car show. And so it's something to do this weekend here. That's free to attend. Doesn't cost anything. Just walk on down. Check it out.
Cool. Councilor Kangeiser.
This past weekend, I went to a TMTL auction. It's a local recovery house fundraiser to help keep those houses functioning and up to date. Just under $130,000 was raised. I spoke to a gentleman that wants to encourage gardening in our community. If you are looking for a place to start, we have our community garden at the Yelm City Park. Volunteers are always welcome. I actually have been connecting with Bounties for Families since this reach out. They are a big advocate in learning how to garden, keeping it alive and healthy. They host monthly workshops. So I definitely encourage gardening and reaching out to Bounty for Families. Last week, I went through a bit of an elected officials training that I believe Brian Hess went to as well. Dave Anderson shared quite a lot about the Growth Management Act. I'm excited to keep learning more. It's really not as simple as I want a house here and a grocery store there. As I relate to information specifically to our area, there's often many elements to consider between not only our city approach, but often the county and even the state are involved because of our unique boundaries. And then as I slide into my committee responsibilities and rearrange my schedule accordingly, I had a wonderful conversation with Sherry from Southeast Fire Authority, and I will look forward to falling into those meetings shortly.
Good, thank you. And just encouraging council, thank you for attending the AWC trainings. If you do these trainings, you can earn your municipal leadership certificate from AWC. If you complete all the courses, and I think there's like 50 credits or something. I don't quote me on that. But anyway, if you complete it, it makes you a better or a more whole council member for understanding different aspects from just Robert's Rules of Order to I think there's labor negotiations. There's all these different parts of it that might not even apply to you now, but in the future, if you decide to go on the executive side of things, it's just a wonderful program. And if anyone does get municipally suited, if anyone gets a certificate of municipal leadership, I'll buy them at least lunch. But it's a little incentive.
Let me write that down.
Yeah.
It's recorded.
It's recorded.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I can't stress how helpful it is just for all the knowledge it gives you. So thank you for attending that. And the AWC meetings, the annual conference, I hope that you've seen the email from Kathy. Thank you for sending that out. But if you do want to attend that, it's in Vancouver this year in June. I forget the actual date, but it's in June. We do set aside training budget for that. So that's part of council's budget that's set aside for them that you approved. That'll pay for accommodations and the conference ticket itself. So if you can find the time, I know it's hard because it's in the middle of the week, but if you can find the time, please try to make that. It's a great conference and you get a lot into it. You get like halfway there in your leadership certificate by just attending. So that's all. Thank you for letting me steal some of your thunder. Councilor Hess.
Intercity Transit Authority, we had a really good meeting. The general manager has been authorized to purchase some 40-foot hydrogen cell buses, as well as some work trucks. In addition, May 15th, there will be a public hearing for comments from the public in reference to the draft Intercity Transit 2025-2028 Transportation Improvement Plan, as well as the draft Capital Improvement Plan. For those that depend upon mass transit or want to see it more effective here in this area, recommend that you attend that and have your voice heard. In addition, even though she's been recognized for last year, I just want to say for our communications director, just want to show appreciation on how well she has been really keeping the community informed. All those posts about what's happening with the police department, Parks and Recreation, and the city itself. So it's been very, very good for that. We already, again, the Arbor Day celebration, please consider that. Also, I'm in discussion with a community member in reference to what they would want to do is they want to put up a farm stand. That is the concept of like free food in Tacoma kind of concept of take what you need, leave what you can. So we're going to be working with that individual and see if that might be the start of what we've been trying to do of kind of make this food desert of Yelm a little bit more effective. And then the comprehension plan seminar, that was a great seminar. Had a lot of questions answered and look forward to getting involved with our comprehension plan from what I learned from that. Hopefully we'll be receiving some great resources to help out with that as well. That's all.
Yeah. Councilor Crossman.
Question for Councilmember Hess. Can you explain this food desert? You mentioned it multiple times and I'm always confused by it. So
the food,
and I get it for other cities, but I don't get it for Yelm. So
just like in other cities, just as in Yelm, when they refer to a food desert, it's not necessarily that there's not a supermarket, it's that the access to fresh produce and to the fresh foods, not necessarily, as one will say, the processed foods or anything else like that that you can purchase in the supermarket. But it's getting, because if you were to go out and do nothing but buy fresh food and do that kind of your produce that way, studies have shown us it's better nutrition for you. And not only that, but it takes a large amount of your budget to be able to do that. compared to buying canned or frozen or something like that. And so, yes, we have a food desert here due to the fact that we don't, in a lot of communities there are, because of the cost for that fresh produce and some of those other things that are out there. So that's why they refer to it as a food desert. Most cities fall into that category.
Councilor Palmer, you had a question?
Well, yeah, I had a comment on that. I mean, when times were tough with my family, we made planter boxes and grew lettuce and tomatoes and stuff like that out in the backyard. So I don't understand why people couldn't just do that.
Well, they can, and that's where the Food is Free Tacoma, that's one of the things that they do. I mean, if you've grown in your own garden, and I can speak from experience, you all of a sudden have more produce than what you can eat in your own family. I mean, the joke amongst my family and neighbors is, here comes Hess with the zucchinis. I'm right.
Go crazy.
All right, question.
But the Food is Free concept is that all local gardeners can take their excess and share it with the community members. That's the concept of it.
I got you. Okay.
Councilor Wood?
Just curious what the parameter around an area would be to consider it a food desert. I mean, how far away would a person have to go before you've reached the status of food desert?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking for, like how far away from a supermarket?
Yeah. Or a place where you can, because, I do a lot of purchasing of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
And Olympia's just up the street for me. I don't do a lot of it here in town, but I can get, I just like anybody else, I'll go to Safeway and get vegetables and fruits. I'm just curious what constitutes that actual desert. I mean, what is the?
Why don't we let, if you want to respond, and then let's move on.
I'll gladly respond to that. It's just a term in reference to the fact that when you're looking at your economic levels within the community of being able to get the foods that are healthy, the foods that are fresh and things like that. And it's, things like Food is Free Tacoma, because it's not coming from the government, as in WIC or any of those other things. It's community members stepping up and helping each other out and sharing the victory garden that everybody has. And it's just a good thing. And I'll gladly get the full definition of a food desert. But one of the things that they say is if you have a dollar store or a Dollar General, you're in a food desert. And that comes from people who do the studies on food deserts.
All right.
That's it.
Councilor Crossman.
I forgot, and I meant, in regards to the comp plan and that climate resiliency and everything, all that, there's going to be opportunity for public comment during all of that. So just for the public to be aware, there are opportunities to public hearings and comments and stuff. And I want to highlight that. Forgot.
And go online too. It's our website.
Go online, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Good segue to the next thing. Councilor Palmer.
All right.
Comp plan maybe?
Nothing about comp plan. No, just very easy. FA plant sale this Thursday at the high school.
Speaking of being a food desert.
In food desert. So it starts at 8 a.m., usually runs till 6 or 7, and it all goes to help the FFA.
Good for the FFA. Councilor Kaminsky.
I went to the Arts Commission meeting, and they are participating for the first time by invitation from the city to have a little banner and a little corner, and they're going to do chalk artwork competition for adults and kids. So we talked about that. And also they'll be bringing to the next study session a photograph that was pulled from the archives by Lynn of the old Wolf building back in the 1920s or whenever it was. It's a black and white photo, and in our budget for the Arts Commission, we're going to make a wrap and put it across the street from the old Wolf building on that big utility box. So they'll be bringing that and showing that to us at the next study session for approval. It's paid for by the Arts Commission budget. And then secondly, I had the fabulous Nisqually River Council meeting. It was the end of the year annual retreat. It was up at their cultural center where I had never been. It's absolutely beautiful. Have you ever been there? It's way up on a plateau overlooking the whole estuary and the sound. I mean, it's just gorgeous and it feels so good when you're up there. It was a beautiful sunny day. And Hannaford did a special talk for us. He showed us the little corner, and it's in a longhouse, like a traditionally built Indian longhouse. It was freezing in there. I don't know what they do, but it was not good air conditioning, to say the least. And in the corner, he showed us where he teaches weaving and the art of, where they strip the bark from the cedar. And speaking of trees, he did say that, cedar is the foundation of their culture. And if you know anybody getting rid of cedar trees or cutting them down, let them know, because they want it. They take it, strip the bark, and he showed us how they strip it and soak it, and they weave baskets and they make things. So in this cultural center, they do all sorts of cool things for the kids. So it was a very wonderful day with lunch and very nice. Oh, and he did also mention, I've never been on this, it's an annual event, the Chief Leschi Honor Walk, which involves going, I guess, to the ancient site of where the Indians first landed, and it has to do with the base. You have to get special permission to go there, but they take you either on a 7-mile walk along the old village, or you can go by bus and do a 3-mile walk. This is sort of like a historical heritage day. It sounds fascinating. So that's on May 5th, and you have to sign up for it on the website. So that was it.
Thank you. Councilmember Hess, if you do want to increase like food accessibility for folks here for fresh food, happy to work with you on that. I know it is important for especially a lot of our low income folks around here that don't have access. So if you are moving forward with that, we'd love to help you out. So appreciate that. Absolutely. All right, moving on. There's no executive session, but there is a closed session after this to discuss labor negotiations, updates on that. Right? Is that it? Yep. It's just a closed session, should be quick. Other than that, take a motion to adjourn.
I got one more thing I wanted to mention. I think it's worth mentioning.
Sure.
We had one of our local baseball teams travel to Kennewick this weekend. They were in a breast cancer awareness tournament where they won all 4 of the games. To bring home the championship like our young kids like to do. And they were even complimented on their behavior on and off the field, and they were a good representation of us.
What was the name of the group or the?
It's the Elite 14U.
Congratulations to Elite 14U. Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Richardson? Oh, does someone from the audience want to say something? Oh.
Hold up a second.
Oh, Councilor Richardson, did you motion to adjourn?
Yeah, that was good line.
And there's a second from Councilmember Crossman to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, we are adjourned. So